Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Michael's Sports Hour podcast. This is our new podcast here on the channel, Michael's Baseballs. I usually do sports minutes and things like that with about a 7 to 10 minute video on recapping some news in the sporting world. Well, now we've got an entire hour to talk about anything sports. We can go to NFL, we can go to the MLB, we can go to the NBA, we can go to college football, college basketball. Those are going to be the main sports we are covering in our topics on the Sports Hour. So this is going to be a brand new series for all of you sports fans. If you've got any time off and you want to listen to a podcast, this can be your go-to. So make sure you guys sit back, relax, grab that bag of popcorn or glass of milk or whatever, and enjoy the podcast as we take a journey into sports talk paradise. Why don't we start on the gridiron? We'll start with the NFL. We'll start with the divisional finishes from last night. The Chiefs 31, Colts 13. Chiefs just a dominant performance all over. Patrick Mahomes once again showing us why he is so good, why he's one of the best. He is the best young quarterback. He is one heck of a future here in the NFL. Proved it last night with a fantastic win over the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts just really couldn't stop anything that the Chiefs tried to do. Chiefs with a quarterback rushing touchdown, a wide receiver passing touchdown, and a running back rushing quarterback rushed for a touchdown, wide receiver rushed for a touchdown, running back rushed for a touchdown. That's the first time that has happened in NFL playoff history. So that is a record the Chiefs hold now, one of the many records that this Chiefs offense holds. Individual records, most of them, of course, going to Patrick Mahomes because, he's just one of the best young quarterbacks, and that is without a shadow of a doubt. He's one of the best young quarterbacks. He could be one of the next Tom Brady's. He is one of the guys that is going to most certainly go to the Hall of Fame, barring any sort of career-ending injuries or some career drop-offs of any nature like that. But Patrick Mahomes has such a good future, and the Chiefs, they don't expect the best going into the playoffs. This year, everybody thought it was going to be different. I thought it was going to be different. But everybody expects the worst. The Chiefs, they're not the best playoff team overall. They really don't win playoff games. They haven't won a home playoff game in 25 years. Coming into that game, pick up a victory. This is going to be their first AFC title appearance since 1993. That has been 25 years since that has happened. So the Chiefs fans, they have most certainly reason to celebrate all over Kansas City. So they're going to be partnering first AFC title game that's going to be hosted at Arrowhead Stadium. I'm interested to see who they're going to play, the Patriots or the Chargers. That's going to be an interesting game no matter what. The Chargers went to Kansas City. They picked up a victory on a 2-point conversion late in the game. So I think that the Chiefs probably can beat both teams, but they can lose to both teams. They've done it twice. The Patriots hosted Kansas City earlier in the season, defeated them 43-40 in a game of field goals, but mostly offense. So the Patrick Mahomes versus Tom Brady matchup, that definitely is going to be something a lot of people want to watch. We've seen Patrick Mahomes versus Phillip Rivers twice this season. I would like to see Patrick Mahomes versus Tom Brady, in my personal opinion. I would like to see that matchup, but, we're going to have to wait and see until that is over, until all of that ends tonight when the games end. I believe the Patriots-Chargers is the first game on today. This video will be up probably in the middle of that game premiering. So that's it for the Chiefs and Colts in the AFC divisional game from last night. Now we're on to the NFC divisional game. The Rams 30, Cowboys 22. Rams dominating the running game on offense. C.J. Anderson had been cut by 3 teams this season. Then he signed with the Rams, and now he suddenly is one of the heroes of Los Angeles. Had 2 rushing touchdowns last night, over 100 yards rushing. So did the returning Todd Gurley, over 100 yards rushing, 1 rushing touchdown. So the rushing game for the Rams dominant. That is what the old football aspect was. You got to get that rushing game going. You've got to get all of that in full swing if you want to win a football game. You got to have rushing and defense. That's what the Rams had. That's why they won this football game, because they had the 2 classic things that you need to win a football game. That's why they won the game. They dominated on defense. Cowboys scoring 22 points, 3 touchdowns, 1 2-point conversion. Ezekiel Elliott just stopped. Only about 50 yards rushing, I believe I heard. So Ezekiel Elliott just had one of the worst days of his career, and that's in part to that Rams defense. They stopped everything, and everybody thought Sean McVay, he's this offensive mind. They're going to come in with such an offensive attack. They didn't. They dominated on defense more so than offense, but their rushing attack was just so dominant the Cowboys weren't going to be able to stop it. Their defense not as dynamic as the Los Angeles Rams defense, but that's exactly what needs to happen if you're the Rams. If you're going to play New Orleans in New Orleans, you're going to have a dynamic defense to stop Drew Brees in the passing attack. You're going to have a dynamic secondary. You're going to need Aqib Talib back for that. I believe he went into the game with an injury and did not return. You're going to need to stop the somewhat rushing attack they have with Alvin Kamara in that backfield. So you got to stop New Orleans in all aspects of the football game. If you're going to want to win against New Orleans, if you're facing Philadelphia, you're going to have them at home. So that's going to be more of a big advantage if you're Los Angeles. But Philadelphia beat down on the Rams last time. They had dynamic everything in the game. Carson Wentz was still the quarterback for Philadelphia. And, they're going to have to go to New Orleans. That sour taste is going to be in their mouth. I don't know who they're going to play. I'm most likely going to guess it's the Saints in New Orleans. So that's going to be a tougher challenge for the Los Angeles Rams. But Los Angeles, they went to New Orleans. They lost to them earlier this year. Philadelphia beat Los Angeles at home. So the two teams that won yesterday in their divisional matchup, the two teams that they are going to face, the two teams that they might face, they have already lost to. So it's going to be interesting to see those conference championship matchups. It's going to be a fun conference championship weekend, one of the funnest we've had in a long time. We haven't had really one of the best conference championship weekends in quite some time. We had the opportunity, if the Colts and Chargers would have won their games, which the Colts obviously didn't, as we're talking about the Chiefs in the AFC title game. If the Chargers and Colts would have won, the Chargers would host the AFC title game. Just think about that. And the Rams won, and if the Eagles win, we could have had two conference championship games in Los Angeles, and there were talks about moving both of those games to a Sunday night matchup. One of them on Monday night. So you have 2 different days of conference championships. So, that's exactly what football is all about. You got to have all those games in the same time. You don't want all those games in the same time. You don't want them in the same area. That's exactly what the other teams are for. You don't want all the games in the same area. You could have had 2 Los Angeles conference championships just about 2 or 3 years ago, having no football teams. So, Los Angeles football fans, you got a lot to cheer for now. So, I would be very happy about that if I were a Los Angeles fan. All right, so let's go to some NFL coaching hires. The NFL coaching carousel is coming about to an end. Some coaches don't even have a hire, like Steve Wilkes of Arizona. He did not get hired by another team after being fired after 1 season. Let's go over some of the NFL coaching hires and my thoughts on my personal thoughts on the hire. Browns hired their interim offensive coordinator, Freddie Kitchens, as the head coach, not Greg Williams like I would have if I were the Browns general manager. If I were in that position, I would have definitely hired Greg Williams with the job he did, turning the Browns season around. They could have made the playoffs if they had a decent start to the season. But, Freddie Kitchens, he's the one who developed Baker Mayfield to this fantastic quarterback that broke almost every rookie passing record there could have been. Baker Mayfield is such a dynamic quarterback, and a lot of people should be worried about him if you're in the AFC North. Steelers fans should be worried about him. Ravens fans should be worried about him. Bengals fans should be worried about him. A lot of things can happen with Freddie Kitchens as offensive coordinator. But I see Freddie Kitchens' hire as the Browns moving to the way that the rest of the NFL is trying to go, that offensive approach. The Browns, they had a lot of dynamics, but now they didn't even retain Greg Williams, so that shows me that they don't want to go with defense. They want to go completely offense with this hire of Freddie Kitchens. That's what this tells me about the Browns' future. So an offensive future in Cleveland, I believe that's exactly what's going to happen. All right, now on to the Broncos hire of Vic Fangio, the Bears defensive coordinator. The Bears had easily, without a shadow of a doubt, the best defense in the NFL this year. They had some nice pickups in the offseason of Khalil Mack, who led this defense. That's no doubt. They had, I believe, 8 different players with interceptions. Their secondary was very good. Their front seven was phenomenal. So you got to think about this hire as now the Broncos and their general manager there, they're defensive-minded, and they want to stay that way. They don't want to go with the rest of the NFL and go offensive because I don't believe they have that talent just yet. They only have Case Keenum as quarterback, who had barely a half-decent season after having such a good season in Minnesota, an inconsistent quarterback in the backfield for Denver. You've got an in my opinion, an underrated running back. No, without a doubt, he's an underrated running back. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but such an inconsistent, not very much talented offense. I see this hire as the Broncos staying with their mantra of going with a defensive mindset in the future. So Broncos, they're going to be one of the very few teams, if any, decide to stay with this defensive mindset. Now on to the Buccaneers hire of Bruce Arians, former Arizona Cardinals coach. He was the man who coached the Cardinals when they were in their last really run, pretty much, of the Arizona era. Bruce Arians led them with Carson Palmer as the quarterback, one of the surprises of that time. So Bruce Arians, he was the offensive coordinator of the Steelers when they defeated the Cardinals in Super Bowl XLIII. I believe it was Super Bowl 43. So he's proved himself as a championship-winning coach. That's what the Buccaneers want with Jameis Winston as quarterback, one of the young guns of the NFL, and a lot of young quarterbacks are coming through. So now it seems like Jameis Winston is almost in the midst of his career with all the young quarterbacks that are in through the NFL. He made it in with Marcus Mariota, and Marcus Mariota still seems like a young quarterback. He plays his game not like any other NFL quarterback. Winston does. So with a quarterback that almost seems like he's in the midst of the career, Jameis Winston, they got to utilize it when they can. Hiring Bruce Arians tells me the Buccaneers want to win a championship, and they want to win it quick. Hiring a championship-winning coach in Bruce Arians, and a coach that can take them to the playoffs, easy. He is such a smart coach. He can take them to the playoffs. I see that, and I wouldn't see that as a surprise with this hire. So the Buccaneers, I give them a good hire, but I think they want to get to a championship just a little too quick. They need more talent. They need to utilize a little more. They need to get some more talent. They need to get some more pieces added to the puzzle. It doesn't just work like that. They need more pieces to the puzzle than just a head coach. So that's my opinion on the Buccaneers hire. Now on to the Jets. Adam Gase, former Dolphins head coach, only took them to the playoffs 1 of 3 seasons. So, just wasn't apparently getting the job done in Miami. But New York, they can see him as the next option. Todd Bowles definitely did not do his job he was supposed to, as what seemed like at the time, he seemed like at a time, that's a young head coach. I don't know, that's kind of a dangerous hire for the New York Jets. And now you have the guys like Sean McVay who are succeeding so well as a 32-year-old youngest coach to win a playoff game. You know, you've got Kliff Kingsbury, who's being hired. We'll go into that later. And then Adam Gase. So they're going to hire another young quarterback, another young head coach, in Adam Gase in New York. So we'll see the way the Jets want to go with Sam Darnold as quarterback. Sam Darnold's going to have, and Adam Gase is going to have to deal with Sam Darnold, and I don't see that as a bad problem if I'm Adam Gase. I've got a pretty decent situation here in New York. They're in a rebuild mode, and you know that rebuild mode just doesn't seem like it's close to being over. They just need a couple more defensive pieces, and they will be a team that I don't think they can contend with the Patriots, but I think they can contend for a 6th wildcard spot in about 3 years if they can get the right pieces, draft the right guys, make a couple good trades. So, you know, Adam Gase, you've got a good situation. You just got to make sure you can keep your job for 3 years, and you've got yourself one heck of a rebuild, one heck of a finished product after a rebuild mode. So Adam Gase gets to inherit a good situation in New York. Next, we've got the Cardinals hiring Kliff Kingsbury. Here's the young coach, and here's a couple of Sean McVay-type hires. Sorry about that. Here's a couple of Sean McVay-type hires for the NFL that they're going to have to look at. Kliff Kingsbury is the first, going to the Arizona Cardinals, USC offensive coordinator. And Sean McVay type hire, and I don't know what the buzz all about was with Kliff Kingsbury. I don't know why everybody was going after Kingsbury just because he's a young Sean McVay type coach. I still think he needed a little more development as a coach in college. 5-7 with a great freshman quarterback in JT Daniels. I believe that if he stayed in USC, they would have a pretty good season next year on the offensive side of the football. But now in the USC and Kliff Kingsbury, the situation he's leaving in USC, I think it just doesn't bode well for the Trojans. So Kingsbury, I think he got the best of USC, and now he's leaving. So now USC is going to have to look for a good offensive coordinator. So the USC situation, if any USC fans are watching, the best is not yet to come. The best has come in the passing of Sam Darnold. But you know, you've got to deal without Kliff Kingsbury, and now the Cardinals get to deal with Kliff Kingsbury, which I think he has. Since he's such a young coach, I think the Cardinals won't just give him 1 year like they did with Steve Wilkes. I think they give him a 2 to 3 year window to give Josh Rosen the young quarterback experience. He did such a good job with Sam Darnold, and when you give him a talented quarterback, that's the mind of the Cardinals. You give him a talented young quarterback in Josh Rosen, he can do a good job. But Josh Rosen needs to grow up, mature, develop a little bit. So I think he has 1 more year before Kliff Kingsbury takes him to the next level, and the Cardinals can finally contend for that for the division with the Cowboys to possibly make the playoffs. Excuse me, not the Cowboys, the Seahawks. Contend with those two Seahawks. I don't think about the Rams, but they can contend with the Seahawks for a 5th or 6th wild card spot. So give Kingsbury 2 or 3 years to develop Josh Rosen, make him grow up, mature as a quarterback, and you've got a really good playoff contender in the Arizona Cardinals. On to the Green Bay Packers, Matt LaFleur. Another Sean McVay type hire. Titans offensive coordinator was working with Marcus Mariota, and he was he did a very good job with Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota is now one of the good. He's a matured young quarterback, but the Titans have a good situation if they can find the right offensive coordinator outside of LaFleur. But the Packers just want a Sean McVay. These teams, they want another Sean McVay to appear out of thin air like, boom, we got another Sean McVay, let's go hire him. No, it doesn't happen like that. You don't just get Sean McVays out of nowhere. So Kliff Kingsbury and Matt LaFleur, they're Sean McVay type hires. You got Matt LaFleur, and the thing is, the Packers, probably worst decision to go with the Sean McVay type hire, because LaFleur is about the age of Aaron Rodgers. Sean McVay came into a situation where he's got Jared Goff as his quarterback, a young quarterback who he can mature as an offensive mind. Kliff Kingsbury, an offensive mind. He's got a young quarterback in Josh Rosen. That's why it's a pretty good hire for the Arizona Cardinals. I can see that hire. But Matt LaFleur, an offensive mind with an old quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, who's got about maybe 5 good years of his career left. I see this as a dumb hire from the Packers. They should have waited for a Sean McVay type hire. They should have, if they wanted that, they should have definitely waited until Aaron Rodgers retires or leaves the Packers. That's when you get a Sean McVay type hire, because that's when you get a young quarterback out of the draft. And if you get a young quarterback out of the draft this year, then that Matt LaFleur hire isn't too bad, because he can develop him behind Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers can take him under his wing, and then when Aaron Rodgers leaves, you then have this young quarterback who's been developed by a young coach in Matt LaFleur, who's been developed by a veteran quarterback and an all-pro quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. So I think the LaFleur hire came too early for the Packers. I don't think it's the smartest hire. So these are hires that are supposed to be planned. They're planned and hoped by the teams to get hired, but they haven't been announced by the team just yet. Let's start with the Dolphins. They hire Patriots linebacker coach Brian Flores, a very good defensive mind, a very good defensive coach. He was the linebackers coach for the Patriots. The Patriots had such a good front seven, especially with the linebackers. That linebacking core. I think that Brian Flores, that there are 2 defensive hires here, Vic Fangio for the Broncos and Dolphins Brian Flores. Those are the only 2 defensive hires and the only 2 really defensive-minded coaches that are still left in the NFL. So the Dolphins, taking the route with the Broncos, are hiring a defensive-minded coach coming from a good defensive culture, and they want to go the defensive route, away from anybody, steering away from everybody else in the NFL. So the Dolphins, a defensive hire, I think it's a good hire to try to steer away from everybody else, because they really don't have the offensive talent in Ryan Tannehill. They don't have the offensive talent, and really everything on the offensive side for the Dolphins just isn't really in the best situation. So a defensive hire, I think, for the Dolphins is the best thing that they could have done in that situation. Next for the Bengals, they hire Zach Taylor. The Bengals, who I thought after Marvin Lewis left, he said, I endorse Hugh Jackson as my next coach. My first thought is, you're also endorsing the Bengals becoming the new Browns. The Bengals had that type of talent to be turned into that, and if Hugh Jackson would have been the coach, that's the coach who brings them down from decent team to Browns. You're now down here. You're the Browns now. So, just not the best. So, now you're hiring a quarterback coach from Los Angeles just because he shook hands with Sean McVay. Now you're going to hire, and he's a young quarterback coach. You're going to hire him, giving him Andy Dalton, who with he's injury prone. Andy Dalton, he doesn't have very much of his career left in front of him. I hate to say it for these Bengals fans. He doesn't have much of his career left in front of him. Driscoll isn't the best quarterback to replace him, but, he can develop. You're just hiring Zach Taylor because he's a young coach who went under the wing of Sean McVay. I think this is an awful hire for the Bengals. I think that the Bengals are on their way to becoming the new Browns, but if Zach Taylor can do something different, then I'll apologize in a podcast episode if that ends up changing, but I think that this is one of the second worst thing the Bengals could have done. The worst thing they could have done is hired Hugh Jackson. But the next worst option is hiring a quarterback coach from Los Angeles just because he worked with Sean McVay and he's a young quarterback coach, because you want quarterbacks because you have talent in Andy Dalton. I think Andy Dalton, he just doesn't utilize his talent well enough. I think that Driscoll is not going to be the best quarterback to replace him. Those are my thoughts on the NFL coaching hires, and that's it from the gridiron. Let's shift from the gridiron to the basketball court. NBA. We'll start with the NBA. LeBron with his groin injury. We're not going to talk about the NBA much. Not going to talk about the NBA much. Not real big storylines here. But, LeBron with his groin injury. He's out a couple more games. He's going to be reevaluated next week. And LeBron's groin injury, this has been dragging out way more than I thought it would. On Christmas, I saw LeBron go out with a groin injury. I'm like, okay, this shouldn't be too big for the Lakers. And, LeBron will be back pretty soon. Didn't happen. LeBron James is now quite some time. And now you've got potentially the Lakers doing, I don't know what they would do, what they're going to do without LeBron. They're, I believe, 3-5 without LeBron. Bad situation for the Lakers right now. So when LeBron comes back, I see the Lakers going back up to that relevancy they had with LeBron. Since he's out 2 more games. He could be out another week for all we know. Next Saturday, they play the Houston Rockets. That's one of the biggest games they have of the season. If LeBron's out for that, the Lakers, who's their second best guy? Rajon Rondo's out with a finger injury. You can say it's Lonzo Ball. I would personally think it's Kyle Kuzma. You've got some young players, but I don't really know if they can handle this big-time situation without their leading player, their big leader. So, LeBron being out, not a good situation for the Los Angeles Lakers. And I feel bad for Lakers fans. Because, they're really grieving right now. They're really not in the best situation right now. And they're going to have to deal without LeBron for another 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or however many games he's out, depending on his reevaluation. And what should the Lakers do? That's a question many people have been asking. Should they make a trade? Should they trade for Anthony Davis of the Pelicans? Because, the Pelicans are going to shop Anthony Davis with the way they've been playing this season. Anthony Davis is a high-scoring guy. He's a nice post guy. He gets a good amount of rebounds. He gets a good amount of the Pelicans' points. So, Anthony Davis, I think that's the only trade the Lakers should make if they do make a trade, because Anthony Davis is not an upgrade from LeBron, but he's a nice addition to the Lakers' starting rotation. And it's not just a rental, it's for the entire season. So now you have Anthony Davis and LeBron James alongside Lonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma. That's one heck of a Lakers lineup. So the only trade that the Lakers should make, if they indeed make a trade, would be for Anthony Davis of the New Orleans Pelicans. I don't know. Leave your thoughts on this one in the comments below. And before we begin the second half of Michael's Sports Hour, the podcast, why don't you guys tell me any questions you want answered? If you have any questions about sports, you want me to answer them, leave them in the comments down below. Any questions you have that you want me to answer in the next episode of Michael's Sports Hour, the podcast, leave them in the comments down below. Tell me what questions you want answered, and I'll make sure to answer them for you in the next episode of the Michael's Sports Hour podcast. So now let's move on here to the MLB, onto the baseball diamond. We've got we'll start with the Yankees. Their signings. They've signed Troy Tulowitzki and DJ LeMahieu, 2 infield players. Tulowitzki, a shortstop. DJ LeMahieu, either a third baseman or a second baseman, but is an infielder. And does this take the Yankees? And these are a couple of good signings for the Yankees. Let's talk about these signings first before we get into what this means for the Yankees and the rest of their offseason. These are good signings by the New York Yankees. Good signings by the, 27-time world champions? A dynasty, of course. And the Yankees picking up Troy Tulowitzki and DJ LeMahieu, a couple of infielders who will bolster their infield, especially with Didi Gregorius going to be out for the beginning of the season. Troy Tulowitzki missed all of last season as well, so You know, the Yankees, they're preparing for next year. They're preparing for the future. They're preparing to win a championship next year, which could very, very much well happen. So good signings for the Yankees. Plus, in Troy Tulowitzki's contract, they only have to pay the MLB minimum of $555,000. I believe the rest of his Troy Tulowitzki's contract is going to be paid off by the Toronto Blue Jays. So the Blue Jays putting themselves in an awful position next year. So they're in a clear rebuilding mode with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He's going to be coming up. So that's going to be definitely something that they are going to want to do in indefinite rebuild mode. So, you know, that's how things are going to go right now in New York. What does this mean for the rest of their offseason? Does this take them out of the Manny Machado sweepstakes? The big push for Manny Machado. Does this take the Yankees out of that push? I think so. The Yankees are now pretty much out on Manny Machado. They picked up their third baseman in DJ LeMahieu. They picked up their shortstop in Troy Tulowitzki. Manny Machado really doesn't fit in the Yankees anymore. The Yankees really don't have the money Machado wants anymore. So this means the Yankees are out on Manny Machado. Manny Machado's been thinking about the Phillies, the White Sox, the Dodgers. Who is now the front runner for Manny Machado now that the Yankees are out of the Manny Machado sweepstakes after their signings of Troy Tulowitzki and DJ LeMahieu? Is it the Dodgers, the team he won a World Series? Is the team he made the World Series with? Is it the White Sox, the team that has the money that they're willing to spend, and the Phillies? I think the Dodgers, of course, the front runners for Manny Machado. If I had to rank those three teams, I'd put in front, in terms of front runners and everything, Dodgers 1, Phillies 2, White Sox 3. White Sox, they're not an attractive sight. All they have is really money. Manny Machado wants to win a championship and get his money. I think the place he's going to do that, either the Dodgers or the Phillies. Because the Phillies have the money that they're willing to spend on Manny Machado. Plus, they have the infield space for Manny Machado. So do the Dodgers, but the Dodgers don't have as much money as the Phillies do. The Phillies are willing to spend their money. I personally think the Phillies will sign Manny Machado because they have more attractive money. They have more money than the Dodgers do. They're an attractive team, an attractive organization for the future, especially for right now. And they also have the more money to spend on Manny Machado. They have the attractive organization, which makes it a better place for Manny Machado to go to. He is clearly one of the best free agents remaining on the market. A lot of teams are trying to chase him down, trying to get Manny Machado to sign with them. You know who they're also trying to get to sign with them? Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper and Manny Machado still haven't signed yet. The entire league, once again, is waiting on free agents to sign. Last year, they were waiting on, I believe it was J.D. Martinez and Jake Arrieta and Yu Darvish to sign. This year, it's Bryce Harper and Manny Machado waiting on them to sign. When will these two sign? I don't believe they'll sign until later in the off season. I don't think they sign until from mid-February to early March. They won't sign until about a month and a half before the season starts. It's going to be a long time, and we're going to wait a long time again for the MLB offseason to really get going, for the hot stove to really heat up. It's going to take a long time. It's going to take until spring training starts, well into the pitchers and catchers reporting. That time, it's one of the best times of the year for the MLB fans, but, you know, that's really what the MLB market is waiting on. That's what everybody's waiting on in the MLB market, for Manny Machado and Bryce Harper to sign, to see which teams are even going to be more attractive. Which teams are going to be even more attractive to pick up these players for the teams that are going to want to play that really they're really going to want to play in those areas. They're going to want to play in those teams because they're going to want to play for teams that have those players that can win a championship. So a lot of free agent signings are going to come after Machado and Harper sign. I predict they sign. I don't think they're going to sign until later into the offseason or until maybe even spring training starting. So if you're a baseball fan, just sit back, relax, and wait until you hear Harper and Machado signing, because I wouldn't read any rumors because, you can't even trust them anymore. Until you hear somebody say Harper or Machado has signed, boom. Once one of those guys get up, and now you're fine. It's time to get into the MLB season. But the first guy that signs is going to send the free agent market, start signing and all that. Once the second person signs, the rest of the guys that are still waiting are going to sign, and then by mid-March, there will be very few free agents remaining. So, the entire MLB market is waiting on Manny Machado and Bryce Harper, so the question is when they're going to sign. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, or if you're watching the premiere of this, leave them in the chat, and I'll read them and try to respond to them. But that's it for the MLB talk. Back to the gridiron. For all you football fans out there, college football fans, we'll start with the national championship since I haven't made a really recap video of that. So Clemson dominated. Trevor Lawrence, a true freshman, 19-year-old. Nobody thought he could get the job done. I didn't think he could get the job done. He got the job done. Justin Ross, his leading receiver, also a 19-year-old true freshman. So, a lot of young players on the Clemson team, they have such a good future. They could go 15-0 next season, and nobody would be surprised. A lot of people were surprised this year because it doesn't happen. 15-0? Are you kidding me? That's impossible with all the upsets that happen in college football. It happened. And Clemson was the team to do it. Alabama in the college football playoff, their chance to make a dynasty, they have failed. First college football playoff, they're the first one seed in the college football playoff. A chance to win the first CFP national championship. They lose in the first round of the Ohio State Buckeyes. They have a chance here to make it 15-0. They lose to the Clemson Tigers. Surprising losses by the Alabama Crimson Tide that nobody saw coming in the college football playoff. The only two teams in the college football playoff that have beat Alabama, Ohio State, and Clemson. So those three are really the teams that are dynasties in this college football playoff. They're the only three teams that have won a national championship in the college football playoff era. So, Clemson, they have a dynasty for the next few years. Ohio State. No, let's start talking about Ohio State for a little bit. Their situation. Dwayne Haskins moving to the draft. Now you've got, it looked like it was going to be Tate Martel as quarterback, and then Justin Fields transferred Ohio State. So now you're like, okay, we have a good 1-2 punch again. Justin Fields, the 6'3", 230-pound freak of an athlete, as Dwayne Haskins described him at quarterback. And then you got the Russian quarterback, the nice speedster, and Tate Martell. I really never had the best opinion of him. And now Tate Martell has entered the transfer portal. Where could he go? Excuse me there. Excuse me. So, where could Tate Martell go? He could go to Maryland. He could go to Miami. He could go to Oklahoma. We'll get into that a little bit later. But Tate Martell entering the transfer portal. The questions are, where is he going to go? What should happen in that situation? I don't really know where Tate Martell would fit best with his attributes and talents. But Martell, he's a decent young quarterback. I never had the best impression on him, but teams like Miami that are in a rebuild mode, Maryland who need a quarterback, they'll enjoy him. They'll take him in. But the thing is, Martell's got a little competition in the transfer portal. Two other quarterbacks are in the transfer portal. One, Jalen Hurts, looking to be a fifth-year transfer quarterback so he can play one more year in college, because I really don't. He knows it. I know it. We all know it. He doesn't have a future in the NFL, I don't believe. He already visited Maryland. He's looking possibly at Miami. So I think those two schools will most likely end up with those two quarterbacks it could be another surprise school that we don't know about. So, the transfer portal, it's always nice to, like, speculate things like this. Speculate where somebody's going to go transfer. Speculate, which teams are going to end up with a nice quarterback for the next year. Which teams are going to be in the best position to go win that national championship? Which teams are going to be in the best position to make a run with a new quarterback in their backfield, transferring from another school? That's the real question we're asking. I believe that, in my opinion, Jalen Hurts will most likely go to the Maryland Terrapins, and that Tate Martel, he'll probably go to the Miami Hurricanes. So, those two schools are going to be in a good position. Tate Martell leaving Ohio State now that Justin Fields is in. He said just a few weeks before the Justin Fields transfer, I don't care if Justin Fields is coming here. I'm not transferring. I have put so much work into here. I will be the starter, and I will not transfer. Justin Fields is going to be the starter, and now Tate Martell is transferring, so he's eating all those words. He almost kind of, I think that tweet might have been to try to scare away Justin Fields, like, oh, jeez, I got a lot of competition there in Tate Martell. He really thinks he's going to be the starter, so I really think that might have fueled Justin Fields' decision to be like, okay, I have to work hard here again, but I most likely will be the starter with my talent, but I got to work hard here to show Tate Martell, I'm the better quarterback. He comes here and he scares Tate Martell off, so now Justin Fields is going to be the clear-cut starter for the Ohio State Buckeyes, so the Buckeyes have a couple of good years in front of them with Justin Fields as their quarterback, as that transfer, and now on to some Buckeye talk as well. Urban Meyer leaving the Buckeyes, Ryan Day now the head coach. Dwayne Haskins leaves for the draft. Justin Fields at his quarterback, so Ohio State has had one whirlwind of really December and January. Now that Tate Martell is leaving, Justin Fields is coming in. So Justin Fields is going to be the clear-cut starter for the new head coach, Ryan Day. And Ohio State, they have a lot of Big Ten tests next year. They've got Northwestern, Michigan State. This is in no particular order. Northwestern, Michigan State, Nebraska, who is supposed to be a surprise team next year. They're supposed to have a really good season. We'll see if Scott Frost can take them to the next level next season. They've got Penn State. They've got Michigan. They've got so many tests next year. They've got about 5 to 6 Big Ten tests. If you include Cincinnati, that's 6 tests. But Cincinnati's in the non-conference schedule, and they're not really one of the best teams that Ohio State's going to face. So, Ohio State, they're going to have some Big Ten tests. If they want to get into the college football playoff, they're going to have to pass all those tests, of course. They're most likely going to have to have a 12-0 season, 11-1. But if they have an 11-1 season, they can't have a bad loss like they've had 2 years in a row. Bad losses have knocked them out of the college football playoff 2 years in a row, so they know they cannot be dinged by a bad loss so bad that they're out of the college football playoff, even with the rest of their impressive resume possibly. So Ohio State, they know what they need to do next season to get in the college football playoff. And you think Oklahoma, okay, they have Austin Kendall coming in as quarterback. He's a nice rising junior quarterback or sophomore quarterback. Austin Kendall has entered the transferring portal as an Oklahoma quarterback. What does this mean for Oklahoma and quarterback situation? Kyler Murray's most likely going to go play baseball. What if he plays NFL football too? The one thing we know Kyler Murray's not doing, going back to Oklahoma. What does this mean for Oklahoma? They have to put in a true freshman as quarterback, or I believe he's going to be a sophomore next year as quarterback. So either they get a transfer. So now you add Jalen Hurts and Tate Martell to the Oklahoma name in the transferring portal, because they're going to have to go after a transfer quarterback unless they want to stick with a freshman or sophomore quarterback, which I think Lincoln Riley will. So where does Austin Kendall go? I don't know. Austin Kendall doesn't have very many options, very many teams that he can go to. So Oklahoma, their name is now in the transferring portal for some quarterbacks that want to go there and play in the backfield. Their name is definitely in the recruiting process for teams that want to go there. And, you know, you got a lot of teams that can enter the transferring portal. You got a lot of players that can still enter the transferring portal, as we have about 15 minutes left here on the Sports Hour podcast. We got this to talk about. Let's go over the rest, and then we'll get back into talking about college football now that we reached a 45-minute mark. We've got NCAA men's college basketball, and then that'll be it. I'll open the floor for some questions coming from you guys. I won't answer them, but I'll allow you to put some questions into the chat, put some questions into the comment section for me to answer next time, and I'll prepare for the next Michael's Sports Hour podcast. This will most likely be a weekly podcast that we'll do. I'm going to try video for the first time. If I really can't sync it all that well, we might just have to go audio only, but nice little treat for you guys, face cam, for this Sports Hour podcast. So make sure you leave your thoughts and comments and questions down below for me to answer, and I will most certainly answer them. So, next we're going to go on to we're going to stay on the college football and go with some way too early predictions so that we can keep some time rolling for college basketball, because college basketball, not very much news has been happening recently, so we're going to answer some questions that can be answered, we're going to ask some questions that can be answered. College football. Let's go with some way too early predictions. In my opinion, I'll go right now with the way too early conference champions first. So let's go with the Pac-12 first. The Pac-12, I suspect Oregon will come out of the Pac-12 champions in the 2019 season. I'll change up some predictions based on where players go in the transferring portal, how recruiting goes, or how coaching or something changes, but these are way too early predictions, so keep in mind these are just like first glances. These are my first opinions about what can happen in the college football season. Pac-12, I am going to suspect Oregon comes out of the Pac-12 as the champions of that conference. Justin Herbert returning for his senior season. I think that Oregon will be able to utilize and take the most out of that season. I've got Oregon as the Pac-12 champion. Big 12 champion, I'm going to have the Texas Longhorns coming out of the Big 12. They're going to win it this year with Oklahoma. They don't have such a dynamic offense. They don't have such a dynamic quarterback now. Texas has two of them. Shane Boucher and Sam Ehlinger, two fantastic young quarterbacks in the backfield. Texas has a legitimate shot to go and make the playoff, and I'll give my way too early top four predictions. I think that Texas legitimately is the best team in the Big 12 right now, with West Virginia losing Will Grier, with Oklahoma losing Kyler Murray. Those are the three teams that could really contend. Iowa State, they have Roy Prudy. He can get in with Iowa State. They can get in. It could possibly be Texas and Iowa State, the two best teams in the Big 12 next year. Just think about that. So, Texas, I suspect them to come out of the Big 12 as champions of that conference. On to the ACC, of course, it's going to be Clemson. No brainer. They have no competition in that conference. Who do they? They have got Boston College. They dominated them. They've got Syracuse. Syracuse can put up another good fight this year. The game is at Syracuse. So I think that is the best chance Clemson has to be upset. I think they have Texas A&M again. This time they have Texas A&M at Death Valley, so that's going to be a good environment for Clemson. So, Clemson with no competition really in the ACC. I suspect the Clemson Tigers, the defending national champions, to, of course, win the ACC. Under the Big Ten, Ohio State, led by Justin Fields, will win their I believe it's going to be their third straight Big Ten title. First under Ryan Day. Ryan Day, he's a young coach. You can call him a young coach, almost like a Lincoln Riley on offensive mindset. But we saw what he did last year. 3 games, all dominant performances by the Buckeyes. One against 15th ranked TCU, a big win. So Ryan Day, he's a good young coach. He's He's the guy. Urban Meyer said, I wasn't leaving unless we could find a guy like Ryan Day. We could find the guy who could replace me that he was comfortable with, and Urban Meyer's comfortable with it. Urban Meyer, he wins at all costs. You got this coming from one of the best coaches of all time, highest winning percentage, 3 national championships. So, that endorsement from Urban Meyer made me feel even more comfortable about Ryan Day taking over, so I don't think Ohio State will miss a beat. And Ohio State will win the Big Ten. Next up, we've got the SEC. It's going to be Georgia and Alabama contending again. I've got Alabama winning behind Tua Tagovailoa. He's going to grow and learn a lot from that national championship experience, losing very badly to the Clemson Tigers. Couldn't really get anything going, so I think that experience helps Tua Tagovailoa so much that he's going to develop very well as a young quarterback in the college football world, as you really think about it. Excuse me again. There. Tua Tagovailoa, he can really develop. He can make better reads as they face better teams next season in the college football playoff. I think Tua Tagovailoa is going to learn from this experience, and Alabama's going to have a better year than they did last year, and that's going to be hard to do. That was one of the best Alabama teams of all time, and then they get absolutely destroyed by Clemson. So I think they could go undefeated again in the regular season with even more dominant performances over those teams, over those good teams that they play. And now for the way too early top 4 predictions. I've got the number 1 seed being the Clemson Tigers, number 2 Alabama, number 3 Ohio State, and number 4 Texas. I know what you're thinking. Texas, they're going to make the playoff? Are you kidding me right now? Well, they're going to win the Big 12. They've got some competition in front of them, but they're a lot better than the competition that they'll have this year. Without Kyler Murray as quarterback for Oklahoma, Texas is going to have a really good season. So I think Texas is sliding in at number 4. They're going to play Clemson. Alabama's going to play Ohio State. That's my way too early top 4 prediction. If you disagree, then tell me if you disagree. On to our final sport, where we're just getting ready to wrap up the Sports Hour podcast, recapping a game in college basketball. Let's recap that game real quick before we get into our final question. Duke survives Florida State 80-78 on the road. Their first really big true road test, and they had to do it without Zion Williamson for most of the game. He had to leave with an eye injury in this game, and that's what kept Florida State in this game. I think that's the reason Florida State was able to stay in this game so long. They were able to stay in this game the entire game because Zion Williamson left the game with an eye injury, so you don't have one of their best dynamic players down low playing post. So, that's big. That was big for Duke. That was big for Florida State to stay in that contest. But I think that was the main reason. Duke winning off that R.J. Barrett 3-point shot off the screen, off of a inbounds play. It was considered a buzzer beater at first, and then they had to review it to give Florida State just a few tenths of a second to try to make something happen. They couldn't. So Duke surviving their first true road test only by 2 points. They're the number 1 team. They've lost to Gonzaga already. They almost lost to Florida State. They have 1 loss. That begs a big question within the college basketball universe. Should Michigan be number 1? They're the number 2 seed right now. They're 13-0. They've beaten Villanova by, I believe it was about 27 points. They defeated North Carolina by 17 points. All of their top 25 victories have been by double digits. So why isn't Michigan number 1? Led by Jonathan Poole. They have won all their top 10 games by double digits. Duke has a 2-point win over Florida State. They've got a 6-point win over Auburn. They don't have a real quality win to talk about. They've got Florida State by 2 points. They lost Auburn by 6 points. Michigan has Villanova by 27 points and North Carolina by 17 points. I think that Michigan should be number one, that they have surpassed Duke. A lot of people are saying they will surpass Duke in the future. I think that they have surpassed Duke already. If I were in that AP room, if I were in the AP poll, I would easily put Michigan number one and Duke number two. Michigan has earned their rightful spot at number one in the college basketball world. So I think that they deserve it, and I think that they should get it. Easily, no doubt. And Duke, number two. You give me a Duke quality win, you can put them back at number one because they have so much talent. People are putting them at number one just because they have so much talent. They have R.J. Barrett, Cam Reddish, Zion Williamson, all players who are probably going to leave for the draft next season. So Duke's got one good year to utilize all this talent. They need to do it. This is the year for Duke. Can they win a national championship? Finally. They've got to utilize their talent, though. They haven't utilized it fully. Coach K has not utilized his talent fully with the Duke Blue Devils. Michigan has utilized all the talent that they have, and they have a lot of talent. I think that a Duke-Michigan national championship game is almost inevitable. That's what needs to happen because that's what's best for college basketball. If you want the two best teams in the national championship, that'd be one heck of a game. I think that with the way these two teams are playing right now, Michigan wins that game without a shadow of a doubt. With the way that the teams have utilized their talent, it would be a close game. It would be one heck of a game. But I don't think Duke has earned their number one spot right now atop the college basketball world. I really think that that number one spot belongs to the Michigan Wolverines. I know I'm going to upset some people watching this, but I think I'm upsetting myself by saying this almost. But, you know, as much as it pains me to say this, I'm an Ohio State fan. I'll talk about Ohio State's bad week in a couple of minutes just because, you know, I'm an Ohio State fan, so I'm going to talk about it. So, you know, Michigan, I think they deserve number one. Jonathan Poole, he is one of the best players in college basketball. The only reason Duke is number one is because they have talent that they are utilizing very, very well. On to Ohio State's bad week. I just want to kind of mention this, get this off my chest. Losing to Michigan State last week, okay, I'll take that loss. It was a bad loss. They had a lead at halftime. They had Michigan State. They had their biggest victory in a while in their hands, and it slipped out. Next, they have a comeback game at Rutgers. This is a game where they need to win. Everybody thought they were going to win it. They lose the game by 2 points to Rutgers, 64-62. That was a bad loss for the Buckeyes. That was almost like a wake-up game. Like, you need to wake up. We have to go beat Iowa. And then they lose to Iowa by 10 points, 72-62. So Ohio State, they're most likely falling out of the top 25. So, you know, I'm kind of somber about college basketball. You know, it's January. They can still come back. I don't really see it happening, though. So, you know, that's going to wrap it up for the first episode of Michael's Sports Hour podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Michael's Sports Hour podcast, the first of many episodes of the Michael's Sports Hour podcast where we talk about all the topics in the sporting world, all the big talks. We have an entire hour to talk about sports. So, you know, you've really got a lot of things that we can talk about. We can talk about NFL, we can talk about NBA, we can talk about MLB, we can talk about college football, we can talk about college basketball, we can talk about really any sport that we want to talk about. If you want me to talk about a certain sport and a certain topic in that sport, make sure to leave that in the comments below. I will be responding to some of the comments down below. I will be telling you if your question will be in the next episode of Michael's Sports Hour podcast. So make sure if you have a question, leave them down below in the comments. So an entire hour together. Hope you enjoyed that bag of popcorn. Hope you enjoyed that little glass of milk. And thank you for sitting back and enjoying the ride with me on a sports hour into sports talk paradise. But now we have to come back down to earth, come back and talk about the rest of our problems in the real world. So, You know, it's been a nice hour with you guys on the Michael Sports Hour podcast. It isn't an hour yet, but, you know, it will be. So it's been a nice hour talking with sports to you guys. So make sure to tune in for the next episode of Michael Sports Hour podcast. Subscribe and turn on the bell for notifications about when the Michael Sports Hour podcast goes live. So thank you all for watching this episode of Michael Sports Hour podcast. And I will see you all next time.